What's up, Soul Soldiers? This is episode 21 of the Strength House podcast. We're coming at you from beautiful North Providence, Rhode Island, where we're going to indulge in a couple local Little Roadie beers. It's also the first episode since we've announced the brand new opening of the Strength House brick-and-mortar gym. Greg and I are going to talk about our core values and why the Strength House is going to be the place to be for strength training in Western Massachusetts. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show.
The Strength House Podcast, featuring Greg Robbins and Tony Bonvecchio.
Welcome to the Strength House Podcast. This is episode 21, and as you guys can probably notice, we are in our third studio. 21 episodes, and we've already channeled through 3 studios. We are in Tony's kitchen this week.
North Providence, Rhode Island.
Yes.
Little state with a big heart.
So we have a special Rhode Island show coming for you guys tonight, which basically means we are drinking Rhode Island beer. Before we get started, just wanted to extend a huge thank you to everyone for all the support that they have poured out in the news that we are opening our own facility, that the Strength House will become an actual brick-and-mortar gym. And that will be our biggest topic of the evening for sure, just talking about why we're doing it, what some of the core values are of the gym, and I guess, just at this point, how we envision it going.
It's certainly been a whirlwind of a week. It helps for sure to see all the outpouring of support, and it's always nice to have a reminder that you're surrounded by people that love you and support you. And the news that we broke last week certainly made me realize that, and it's easier to face all the tremendous amount of hard work that's coming up, knowing that we have all these people that support us.
Absolutely, yep. As we'll talk about, the Strength House is all about the people that make the Strength House, that live in the Strength House. So it wouldn't be where we are without those people, and we can't wait to have yet another avenue to help more people out. But before we talk about training and before we even talk about our gym, priority number 1 is the beer.
Yes, sir. So first beer of the night from Revival Brewing out of, I believe, Cranston, Rhode Island? Yep, Cranston, Rhode Island. This is You Thirsty, a New England-style IPA. So Revival brews out of, or in conjunction with a restaurant called Brewtopia, which does barbecue. Real good food, pretty solid beer. I've had this once before. I'm excited to try it again. Very intrigued, of course, by the New England IPA tag. You're seeing more and more beers come out that are labeling themselves as New England style IPAs. I've got my Tilted Barn glass, another Rhode Island shout out. Eventually, we're going to have to get some of the up and coming breweries from Rhode Island on the podcast, the Tilted Barns, the Long Lives, the Proclamations, the ones that are really making a splash, kind of on the same level as Trillium and Treehouse.
Yeah.
But we've got Revival, You Thirsty, coming at you.
I am thirsty. Thanks for asking.
And it's a beautiful, hazy, turbid color, much like what we're used to.
Very citrusy smelling.
And this is better than I remember.
I don't know why I'm thinking this, but the first thing I think of is iced tea beer.
There is very much like a tea aspect to it. And like it has some of the tropical flavors, but a little bit more like on the bitter side. And that's something that sometimes I really crave from a lot of these like juicy IPAs is more bitterness. I think this definitely strikes it. And we talked a lot about the first thing you asked me when I went and got these cans from the liquor store is, are they fresh?
Yeah.
And I believe this one's pretty darn fresh. Can dated 7/17. So, yeah, pretty well fresh. And I think that makes a huge difference for a lot of these IPAs.
Absolutely. And that was one of the things I wanted to ask you about was, as we have a little bit more time on our hands, we very well could visit more breweries, but we're also trying to save a few dollars so that we can put more into the facility. So likely we're going to have to source some beers from the local liquor store, where many people will get all of their beer, don't visit breweries or look after look to. Wow, that was terrible. Seek is the word I was looking for. Seek out beers that aren't distributed that you have to go to the brewery for. So what are some of the things you're going to a beer store, a liquor store? You're in a pinch. You got to get some beer. You want to get the best possible beer. As somebody that loves good beer, what are you looking for?
I think first of all, you're looking at can dates because a lot of beers, as your brother told us early on in the podcast history, is that freshness matters, especially for most styles. So if you're looking for an IPA, you're looking for something that's not more maybe than a month old. Even a month is pushing it for a lot of the lighter beers. And a lot of times too is I think about styles. I'm thinking about what styles are going to taste better if they've, number one, been aged a little bit. Not aged in the sense of like putting them in your cellar and letting them go a year, 2 years, whatever, but like not the freshest. And another one is, what was I going to say? I had something. God, I completely forgot what I was going to say.
Freshness, style,
temperature as well.
temperature.
Yeah. I'm not looking good in my own home turf here. No home field advantage for me. But yeah, the temperature. So if beer changes temperature often, it can kind of change the chemical structure a little bit and affect the taste. So you think about typical like beer buying process. So you go into the liquor store, maybe you grab something out of the cooler, or maybe you grab something off the shelf that's room temperature.
Yeah.
Then you put it in your car. The car's probably hot this time of year. So it changes temperature again. You drive home, maybe you put it in the fridge right when you get home, it gets cold again. Then maybe you go to a cookout and you take it out of the fridge, back in your car, warm again, into the cooler, cold again. So that hot, cold can really kind of affect the taste of a beer in a negative way. So I'm looking for beers that maybe are not as heavily affected by temperature changes. Things like stouts, things like wild ales or barley wines, of course. Things that can hold up to being at room temperature for a while.
Cool. All right, so those are pretty much, I would say, yeah, definitely three of the things. We talked about this a little already, but three of the things that I would look for is as well. The number one, like you said, is the can date. Looking for a date on the can. So my usual course of action now is basically one of two ways, depending on how much time I have. Way one, not a lot of time. Go straight to the refrigerated section. Look for, something that's locally brewed and try to get it fresh.
Yep, local's important.
Yeah. So yeah, if I guess there are some bigger breweries out there that are sending stuff fresh as well, but I don't know, something about local. I think I just like that aspect of beer as well, is trying to buy local and buy from these smaller breweries, that even if they are distributing to these stores.
And you just know that beer's probably spent less time on a truck, and that truck may or may not have been temperature controlled. So there's less time from brewery to liquor store to your hands, to your glass, to your face.
Yes. The second one, if I have more time, and I feel like a giant asshole when I do this, but is to just sit in the beer store for a little while and check Untappd and see what the average the average score of different beers are. So sometimes that even precedes style for me, because I'll just be like, and I guess that's how I go about a tap list too, which is another good. Maybe as we pour beer too, we can talk about how you attack a tap list at a restaurant. But
social media has done a lot of really, really bad things for society. But one of the best things it's done is giving you beer information on the fly when you're in the liquor store or at the bar, to be able to make the best choice and buy the best beer.
Right. So I'm just looking for something that's got an average of as close to a 4 as possible, and I'm going to go with that. But I would say, to the point of styles, because freshness matters less, and because I think it's just a style that is more consistent, a lot of times if I'm in a pinch and if I'm not out of the mood for it, I'll go with something like a stout or a porter, because I think it's just done better by a wide variety of people.
It's hard to mess up that style. Like, if you make a bad stout, like, you done fucked up.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard to mess those up. So that's definitely a safe bet. And those tend to be like a non-beer drinker's beer anyways. More on the malty side, less hoppy, like low carbonation, just very few chances to be offensive to most palates.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, would you look at that? No guest, and we've talked about beer for a long time.
Well, we have to take advantage of the no guest because that's pretty much the only time we get to talk about beer as long as we want.
And earlier start time, so we could go all night if we wanted to.
This is true. The earlier start time hasn't affected our viewership too much. Maybe a little, but we have a little bit more time right now. We thought we'd start a little bit earlier instead of waiting until 8 o'clock at night to get going. The topic that is obviously hot off the presses right now is the fact that we're opening a gym, and it's super exciting, and there's lots to talk about in regards to it. Before we get started with some of the stuff that we want to touch on, if you're watching the show tonight and you had questions about the gym, feel free to fire them away, and we will answer as many as we see. So the first thing to talk about, I guess, is when we started thinking about opening our own gym, we wanted to have a well-defined purpose. Like, what was the purpose of starting the gym? So do you want to talk a little bit about, I think what we eventually came to is like our one sentence was something that you came up with that I love a lot.
Yeah, and I think the tagline that you had built already for the Strength House, train with a purpose, like really led in, and we kind of blended the two together, is that I know that the reason that I get up in the morning and I go into the gym and I train people and I like doing it for a living is to help people fall in love with training the way that I fell in love with training. And I think just the purpose of giving everyone a reason to love their training is really what's motivated me, and I think motivated you as well, to do what we're doing, because it fills such an important role in my life in giving me direction in my training. And when you love something, it's not hard to do. And training is hard, and it's hard for a lot of people just to get them in the door and get them training and getting them under the bar. That's the hard part, But then once you kind of get yourself doing it over and over and it becomes a habit and you see the success and you see the progress, you fall in love with it. Yeah. And it's no longer a chore. It's no longer an obligation. It is almost leisure to a certain point. And it's what you do. It's your hobby. It's your passion. So the purpose of what we're doing with the Strength House is giving us another avenue to help as many people as possible fall in love with training.
Absolutely. That is our kind of just our business's purpose, to give everyone a reason to love training. And when I think about that as well, it's, it works on a lot of different levels. I would love for everyone that we coach to dive into just training as a hobby completely, not just something that they check off and say, okay, today I got my training done, but that, if they're into the kind of training that, we'll be, heavily pursuing with them, they might go online and check out, world record squats and deadlifts and bench presses and dive into the culture and, everything down to even, getting excited about a new pair of knee sleeves or a new pair of squat shoes or something like that. The same way that when you were a kid, if you played sports, you were pumped at Little League when you got a new bat that year, or basketball, you got a new pair of basketball sneakers for the year. Training could be the same thing.
When you get your first package of black market beer in the mail and you open it up and you unwrap the bubble wrap, and that's like that's something that I really crave, is like that feeling of like excitement and that feeling of like starting something new. And training has always been that for me. We've been training for 10 plus years, but still, like, every time you get a new training program, or every time you go into a new training cycle, or every time you write down a new training goal, it kind of like reinvigorates that excitement that you got, like very much the excitement that we got when we first got into kind of craft beer and trading and that whole scene. It sounds cliche, but like it's the gift that keeps on giving, because there's never an end to training.
Yeah.
You can always get stronger. You can always get better. There's always a weak point or some sort of like speed bump, something that slows you down, and the challenge of it keeps things exciting. So I want to bestow that same excitement upon as many people as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I want them to become a strength training fanboy, if you will. I think as the evolution of a coach and a lifter, I think I used to look down upon some people because they would stroll in and have, Elite FTS t-shirt on or something like that. I'm like, you don't lift. What are you doing with that shirt? When the truth is, like, I would love all our members to go out and buy an Elite FTS t-shirt and a Strength House t-shirt and this gym and that, and just soak up and eat up all the culture out there when it comes to weight training. And what that leads to on another level, just because, I think it's only in recent time now we've started to think about it as a business a little bit more. As much as that's helping people and creating something awesome, it's also fueling a business in all the right ways for people to get results. Because now once you eat up that culture and you love it and it's part of what you do, you don't need us to motivate you quite as much. We're just there helping build and provide you the space to do whatever you want in. Because now you're going to be more intrinsically motivated because it's part of who you are. It's something that you like, and like you said, it's an outlet. It's no longer, a burden or a chore for you.
Yep, and that's where I think you make the transition from like fitness enthusiast to athlete, and something that we've been very lucky to do over our entire careers, is to train athletes, and training athletes has its pros, has its cons, but for the most part, athletes are intrinsically motivated from a strength training standpoint because they have a sport that they need to excel in. And if they don't excel, they're going to let themselves down, they'll let their teammates down, they'll let their coaches down, so they know that there's some sort of physical preparation that they have to do to get better. There are many pros and cons to personal training as well, the general fitness crowd. But something that was always tough for me as a coach with the general fitness crowd was providing the external motivation when they didn't have it within themselves. And I know that empathy is extremely important, and you should be able to stand in somebody else's shoes and be like, okay, this person doesn't love exercise the way that I do. How can I make them do that? But I think if we can take more people from that mindset of like fitness is a thing that is an obligation, I don't love to do it, but I know I should do it, and transition them over to like, this is something that I do because I love it and I want to get better at it. That's that transition from just kind of general pop, if you will, to athlete, and that's a transition I want to see a lot of people make, hopefully, when they come through the doors at the Strength House.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's like our purpose, and then one of the other things that we spent a lot of time brainstorming on our own and then together and coming back and forth just so we wouldn't influence each other too much was trying to figure out what are the core values of our gym. What are some taglines, if you will, that we can use that will resonate not only to our job as business gym owners and coaches, but also to our clients and have dual meanings for both of us. And so we came up with 5 of those things, and we used some catchy taglines for them, but they're just kind of reminders for us, and then things that will surely hang on the walls of our facility to remind our clients what they can expect from us, and at the same time what we can expect from them right back. That's something we've talked about on the show, and we believe in a lot, is that one of the first things you do in onboarding new people is, here's what you can expect, here's what I can expect, I want to be able to expect from you, and if those 2 things happen, this is going to be an awesome experience for both of us, and we're going to get along.
Yep, and I think it's going to help us like keep our vision unified for as long as possible. It's something that you taught me early on, especially in the online training process, is to just be very upfront with your expectations. A lot of times I found myself as a less busy online trainer, let's say, small client roster, promising everything and then ending up under-delivering because I wasn't clear on my expectations. If you lay out the expectations right up front, that helps build the culture. If you tell them, like, you're not going to have your cell phone on the training floor, or, like, here's what I expect from you, you must be on time, here's the kind of attitude and the kind of effort I expect as your coach, people are going to reciprocate. And if you let them get away with it without laying down the expectations, then you have less control over the culture. I know we've both been a part of some really, really great training cultures that we want to continue to push, but I'm excited to build our own.
Yeah, absolutely. I think building our own culture is got to be like one of, if not the most, one of the best, the best parts about what we're doing, and one of the things that really drove us to do it. So, without further ado, let's dive into what these core values are a little bit. So, our first core value, which was basically, we both had it on our list. We listed out a ton of different things that could be core values. Some of them overlapped even with each other on a single list, and then we said, all right, well, let's see how many of our core values are the same, and obviously those are the things that we need to build on. And the number one thing we both wrote down was positive training environment, or as we like to catchphrase it, no assholes. No assholes in the gym, positive training environment all the time. What does that mean to you?
Well, I think that means that no matter what, you praise the effort and you praise the attitude above all else. And I know we've both been a part of a lot of sports teams. We've been a part of a lot of different gyms and different training facilities. And I can safely say that every single one that's been successful has an overall positive training environment. So I've been on baseball teams that have won a lot of games, and it was always unrelentingly positive. I've been on a lot of baseball teams that lost a lot of games, and the attitude overall was always very negative. And you can talk chicken or the egg, but I always think that the attitude and the positivity or lack thereof is really going to kind of drive your results. So, and we also know from a technical coaching standpoint that negativity is bad for learning. It's bad for motor learning, for skill development. So if we want our clients and the Strength House members to get better, become better lifters, we have to be very positive.
Yeah.
Very, very, very few people do well with negative reinforcement, and I think that's just like an extinct way of coaching and teaching people. And you're never going to lose by being unrelentingly positive.
Absolutely not. And I would be sure to remind people that something like having a core value of that it's a positive training environment, where we praise attitude and effort, is not the same thing as being those people that say everybody gets a trophy.
Right.
It's not the same at all.
That's an important thing to note that difference.
Yeah. A positive training environment just means that nobody's going to be turned down from the opportunity to get better as long as they are willing to support other people, and that those at the top within the facility are not going to shun the newbies either, that they are going to be unrelentingly positive in helping to onboard those people and to be their training partners and to bring them up to speed, and that the whole thing comes down to just being a really big community of positive people. And the one thing that I guarantee will not be tolerated in our facility is people that aren't positive and that are negative and that are cancers basically to a culture that could kill it off very quickly.
Yep. I'm going to relate this back to a Red Sox story. I'll never forget one of the best baseball teams I was ever part of was a summer team that actually played up in Canada when I was in high school, and very good team, very positive. I was one of 2 Americans on that team, the rest Canadians, and they were very positive and very welcoming. Therefore, we were very successful. But I remember driving in the car with my dad and hearing the news that Nomar Garcia-Parra had been traded. I was devastated. One of my favorite players. Nomar, number 5. Actually, it was his birthday, maybe yesterday, I think. His birthday, July 23rd.
Happy birthday, Nomar, if
Yep.
you're watching.
And of course, our Nomar connection, Nomar Garcia-Parra, Mia Hamm, Lori Lindsay. We're only 3 steps away from Nomar.
Yep.
Anyways, I was devastated to hear that Nomar was traded, and then it turns out that the behind-the-scenes stuff. Turns out he was a really bad clubhouse guy. He wasn't good for the team atmosphere, and no matter how good he was on the field, he didn't make people around him better. And you can't have that superstar who then drags everybody else down because of their attitude. I imagine the Strength House being the same way. that we think about the team as a whole and not individuals, which I think is going to segue very nicely into our next core value.
Absolutely. Nice setup there.
Mm.
I'm going to go ahead and spike that down. So our second core value that we came up with is, and I don't know if you took this phrase from somewhere else or anything, but you've said it to me for a while in our discussions about, just what we like about various facilities that we've seen in organizations is the catchphrase for our next core value is no islands. So an island, well, since this is your baby very much so, what does no islands mean?
I think I took this from Wedding Crashers, actually. Like, no man is an island or something like that. Like, always,
Okay.
never abandon your
I
fellow
like
crasher.
it even more now.
So, human beings, from a physiological standpoint, are more alike than they are different. And for that reason, I think that nobody is so fucking special that they need their program to be so incredibly different, so individually structured to the point where they feel like they're better than somebody else, that they're more special than somebody else, that they don't have to train as hard as somebody else. So what I've always craved is kind of like the aggressive team atmosphere where everybody is aggressive but positive and nobody ever backs down from a challenge because whoa, I'm too special to do that. I'm not going to train as hard today because I have XYZ going on, and I'm just not going to put forth the same sort of effort because I'm special. That doesn't fly with me. And the idea of an island is somebody who isolates themselves from the rest of the team. An island being a geographical structure far away from everything else, surrounded by water. Only an island if you look at it from the water. Name that movie, Jaws, of course. Best movie ever. But I would be willing to, from a coaching perspective, willing to sacrifice a little bit of individualization and have a less perfect program if we can get people to train harder and go for a more unified approach. So the island is the person who doesn't train as hard because they think they're so fucking special.
Absolutely, yep. The no islands, to me, is just an absolutely awesome way of saying it, but like another thing I think about is like no one gets anywhere alone. That's another tagline you hear a lot, and it's so true. Like if you think you get anywhere alone, this day and age, doing things by yourself is kind of championed, I think, a lot, which again, to go back even in my life, it's something that I've always, I think for way too long in my life, I championed it too, where I was like, oh, if I can't do it myself, then I'm not doing it. Like, I got to be able to do this by myself. And I would not like anyone in our facility to think that at all. Everything from, putting headphones on, or not saying hello to people, or helping other people, down to the programming side of things where, if it's something that's crucial to you making progress and staying healthy, it'll be in your program, but you're not that special from everyone else, like you said. And you said, well, maybe the program won't be ideal because we'd rather you not be a special flower. But maybe the program is more ideal because we're not treating you like a special flower. Maybe you're going to work harder and get more out of the basics because of that. So no islands is the idea of this community that we're trying to build. And from our end of it, as the owners of the business and as two coaches going forth, no islands is really important too, because if you're going to be in an organization, communication is going to be the number one thing that keeps you going. And if you have a bunch of islands operating behind the scenes to build your facility, it's not going to work either. In a relationship, whether it be with your significant other or a business relationship, so on and so forth, you have to be honest with people. You have to communicate no matter what. Because more times than not, no one's going to flip out because you told them how you feel about something. Everything's going to be better because now they know where you're coming from. And you can, if you're in a good relationship with someone, then their instant response to that is not going to be, oh, well, that's the way you feel, I'm out of here. It's going to be, all right, that's how you feel, that's how I feel. Let's find a common ground and figure a way to figure this out. So from a business standpoint, from a facility and client standpoint, no islands, communicate, community, cooperate, the 3 C's.
Triple C.
The triple C's.
The communication part is huge, and at the risk of sounding like really sappy, nobody getting anywhere alone, I never would have opened the gym by myself. And just the fact that Destiny brought us together, and that this is something that you had the guts to do, helped me have the guts to do it. There are no self-made men out there. It just doesn't happen that way. Everybody gets help from somebody somewhere. You tip your hat. You be appreciative. You give credit where credit's due. There are no islands.
No, absolutely not. And all the best people to look up to are the people that admit that and thank the people that helped them along the way, and who are part of their team. It's always there. If you start looking, it's always there. Even, I like watching golf. Watched the British Open this past weekend. You got a champion thanking all the people that helped him get there. Is there any sport that's really more individual when it comes down to it than golf? I don't know. Probably not. I mean, maybe tennis is another example. Baseball obviously has some of its individual components to it.
But how gross is it when you listen to a post-game interview with an athlete and he just says me, or he points the blame at other people? No, the best athletes in the world always thank their teammates and thank their coaches and say, well, it was a team effort, et cetera, et cetera. That's not just lip service. That's it's a winner's mindset.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, well, you gave me credit for the second core value, but you put some pretty catchy taglines on the next couple. So what's our third core value?
So our third core value, we call it carrying the flag, or carry the flag. So carry the flag was, I think I've heard it in multiple contexts, but it was definitely something that we talked about when I was in the military a little bit. If you look back to really old war times, most battles started with 2 groups, and you'd always have someone in the front carrying the colors or carrying the flag for that group, and that took tremendous courage and also pride in what they were defending, or in all the people that were behind them. So for us, carry the flag is a core value. Like we said, all of these are twofold. From our client standpoint, it's that we would hope that what we're trying to nurture from our culture and within our clients is people who are building confidence and who want to go out there and be leaders, and people that want to stay up to date and have the best training means given to them, as well as within the facility trying to nurture the more elder members carrying the flag for the more new members. So just, there's a quote out there, and I'm going to butcher it, but it just basically says, a sign of good leadership is when leaders are born through your leadership. So whenever you open something like a gym, and we're obviously 2 leaders there doing that, I would hope that we're just turning out leaders, whether it be the athletes we train on the field to become captains and co-captains and different leaders like that, and the people that we train who work other jobs out there, who have the confidence to step up now and be leaders in their field too. Because when you start showing some physical strength, you show a lot of mental strength as well.
Yep. And I feel like carry the flag could be very closely tied to the phrase sweep the sheds from the book Legacy about the All Blacks rugby team. I think of it as leading from the front, never ask somebody else to do something you're not willing to do. And there's going to be a lot of that for us. There's going to be a lot of, we're the owners and we're the head coaches, but there's going to be a lot of little tasks that we're going to have to do. That goes from a business standpoint, but also from a training standpoint. And I've always put a priority on training really hard myself. I know you have as well. We've been training partners for several years now. Mm-hmm. And we both train our asses off. it's gonna be hard while we're getting this business up and running. There are gonna be days where we probably don't feel like training. There'll be days where we haven't slept a lot. There are gonna be days where there's stuff that we have to do for the business that's gonna cut into our training time. But I think it's going to be extremely important that we carry the flag and set an example for our clients and our lifters. And no matter how brief, no matter how abbreviated our training sessions are, we still got to attack it with everything we have and set that example as people who walk the walk.
Absolutely. I would say if there's two things people have told us a lot that I politely say, okay, thank you for your advice, but I refuse. I don't think it has to be this way, I guess. Your training's gonna suck, you're gonna miss training sessions. You say that these are the kinds of people that you want to train and this is the kind of culture you want to build, but eventually you'll just accept anyone who has enough money. This is gonna be recorded. Come back to me in a few years and see if we break our bond on that. We will train and we will not just accept anybody's money that doesn't fit our culture.
And something that I'm really looking forward to is training alongside some of our clients. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like a no-no. I feel like if you're training like athletes or team sport athletes, I've heard that before, like don't train alongside your athletes. But I think a really important part of building that first point, the positive training environment, and the second point of making it feel more like a team instead of a bunch of individuals, it's kind of like stepping in there and getting in the mix and showing the people who we're training that like we walk the walk, that we mean business. And I don't think there's any reason why you can't provide a good coaching experience while you're right under the bar there with your client. Mm-hmm. Today we were talking about some of our favorite training memories, and both of our favorite training memories had to do with training alongside people who we had coached.
Yeah.
And getting in the mix right there with them. So that's something, that's a feeling that I'm chasing. That's something I hope to emulate down the line.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Train side by side, and like I said, so many times, so many aspects of life, people are going to tell you that this is how it's going to go and this is the way it's going to be. And to me, it's like, well, thank you for helping locate problems for us that are already pretty easy to locate. But like, there's no problem. You accepted it. Let's find a solution instead. So
better to be a problem solver than a problem identifier.
Yeah, and I think the people that said like, oh, you missed training sessions. Oh, we just started accepting, whoever's money came through the door. It's like you weren't a solution finder. You were, or I guess you were. What you did was you just took the easiest solution out there instead of digging a little bit deeper. And I'm sure that other business owners will probably hear this and be like, haha, come back to me in a few years and see if that's true. And that's why I said, hold me to it. Hold us to it. Come back to me in a few years and see how many training sessions we missed or how we changed our vision when we didn't want to. I guarantee it's not going to happen.
Another great benefit of this studio, right next to the fridge.
Right next to the fridge. I'm lagging behind you.
Beer number 2 coming up.
All right, we're going to take a small hiatus here, about 30 seconds, because I did not take a pre-podcast pee. Well, you should introduce our new animals.
So we're at the Bonvecchio household, which means we've got my dog Eddie and my cat Aggie somewhere. Aggie's actually sitting right here along with us at one of the chairs. Can't be seen. Eddie's an Australian Shepherd. He's a herding dog. He doesn't like men who are taller than me, which I've trained him well to do. So Greg's not the tallest guy, but he's taller than I am, so Eddie's very quick to bark at him and put him in his place. And while Greg is taking a bathroom break, I'll introduce beer number 2. So one of the first breweries in Rhode Island that I ever got acquainted with was Foolproof Brewery out of Pawtucket. And they hold a special place in my heart because when I first kind of started to graduate from a lot of the shitty beer that I drink in college into more craft beer, Foolproof was one of the ones that I got really into first. Had one of their beers on draft at my wedding, and still pick them up from time to time. So this beer is Queen of the Yahd. It is a spin-off of their double IPA King of the Yahd, but this one is brewed with raspberry, so it's super fruity. I'll probably get made fun of by all kinds of people for the fruitiness of this, but I don't care. I remember it being delicious. I haven't had it in a long time, so here we go. Greg trying desperately to finish beer number 1.
Beer number 1 was good, though.
It was better than I remembered. I'd had it before, and it probably wasn't super fresh. But yeah, it's definitely that hop tea, kind of if you took an Arizona iced tea and blended it with the hoppy IPA. Foolproof is quite literally down the road. You could drive maybe 5 minutes down the road and be at Foolproof from my house.
I like that robust porter that they do.
Yep, the Rain Cloud. Pretty good.
Ooh, it smells like a goza.
It
or
did,
a
yeah.
sour.
It kind of has that too. Yeah, and it definitely drinks a little bit. God, we had one at your house a while ago that drank more like a saison than an IPA. This one's not as good as the first beer we had tonight, and the raspberry is subtle. All the more reason that I need to go to Tilted Barn and Long Live and get us some real diesel Rhode Island beers.
Yeah, but it's not. It's still good. I mean, it's good. It's like a 3.5, 3.75. It's the fruitiest beer we've had on the show.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. All right, so, our fourth core value.
This is a Greg Robbins special right here.
It's yeah, and it's gotten recent publicity because of a speech. I forget the officer's name that made the speech, but you guys have probably heard the speech about making your bed every day, and in that speech he also talks about the core value that we're going to speak on. But it is one of my favorite phrases, and it is to our core, one of our core values, and that is the core value, don't ring the bell. We've talked about it on this show before, but don't ring the bell. It's played a huge role in my life, and that just means never quit. Just never, ever quit. Make someone tell you you're done. Don't throw in the towel yourself. So don't ring the bell will surely hang in our facility. A bell will surely be placed in our facility.
Hopefully never to be touched.
Never to be touched. But I'd rather someone touch it if that's the kind of person that they are. We'd rather get them out of there. So don't ring the bell. It doesn't mean it's trying to stop you from doing anything. It just means don't let your only limiting factor or be yourself, right? Like, go out there and you will make it if you are persistent, consistent, and never quit.
And lean on the people around you for help.
Yeah.
I think that's important too. And every time I've heard you scream, don't ring the bell at the top of your lungs, it's been during a staff training session when somebody was at the point where they very easily could have given up and very few people would have blamed them.
Yeah.
Whether it's, rep 12 at the end of an AMRAP, set, or, very, very close to lockout at a 1-rep max where they very easily could have given up. That whole don't ring the bell, I feel like that's something that's meant to be uttered from one person to another. When the person undergoing the trouble or the hardship is thinking about giving up, but that teammate is telling them, don't ring the bell, you still got it, I believe in you, which cycles back to all the other core values about being part of a team and being part of something bigger than yourself. I just think that term is just so, so, so important and so catchy and makes me think of For Whom the Bell Tolls by Metallica. So, of course, I love it.
One of my favorite songs and your favorite song. Yeah, and so it worked obviously for the clients in our facility that we will preach to them, don't ring the bell no matter what. But it works for us as business owners. I mean, here we are sitting here talking about running a business, and we haven't even ran a business for a single day yet. I guess we haven't really talked about running a business. We're just talking about our plans. But
there are going to be days where things are hard and we're going to want to give up, and then things aren't going to go the way as planned. But if we keep that to heart and know that, with just a couple more hours of work, or me asking you for help or vice versa, we can avoid ringing the bell and get done what we need to get done.
Absolutely. And I know that we will be successful, just like we have both been successful in other aspects of life, or successful to this point. Not always because we're smarter or stronger or something like that. Like, we are not the smartest people in the world. We're not the strongest people in the world. But we have the exact same ability to not throw in the towel as anyone else. And if you don't throw in the towel and you keep finding solutions and you keep fighting, then the doors of our facility will stay open and the Strength House will live on.
You hear that from a lot of successful athletes. It's like, I wasn't the strongest, I wasn't the most athletic, I wasn't the most skilled, but nobody outworked me. When you think about the very few things you can control in your life, attitude, effort. If your attitude is right and your effort is top notch, then you're not going to ring the bell.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think as I was just re-listening to the E-Myth, they said, a warrior is somebody who sees everything as a challenge. And a normal person is someone that sees something as, best case scenario or bound to succeed, or worst case scenario, bound to fail. And if you can't tell by the fact that we've chosen some military-like tag phrases, we're taking the warrior's mindset into opening our business, and the same warrior's mindset that we both use throughout our whole life, which is, this is a challenge, and that's what we wanted. We wanted to be challenged, and we want another challenge on our plate, and we want to overcome that. And actually, to be honest, in doing something like opening this gym, I'm sure that we have created a lifetime of challenges in front of us in the best way possible, though.
Yeah, there's very little to be gained on the path of least resistance, and I think this is just kind of like a natural evolution of where we're going, and I'm hoping that we can pass that same don't ring the bell attitude onto our lifters. And I can't tell you how proud I am of when like I'm training a group of people, and let's say we have like an AMRAP set or something like that, and somebody does a rep, and I'm pretty sure that they're done. I'm like, okay, let's rack the bar. They're like, no, I got one more. Or like their teammates shout like, that was great, like one more, two more, like let's go, let's get to 10, let's get to 15, whatever it is. And to hear other people adopt that mindset makes me so proud, and that's what drives me to keep coaching, to keep training people. So again, I feel like we pick pretty good core values because they all piggyback on each other. And if we can instill that don't ring the bell attitude and surround ourselves with people who won't ring the bell, then that'll make us successful.
Yep, 100%. So our last core value.
Another military phrase, military flair. I feel like you brought a lot of good stuff from your days in the military, and a lot of phrases that have served you well in military life and civilian life.
Yeah, and not on purpose, but I think as we just went through our discussion on it, I started to realize that something like our armed forces and their different branches, a lot of research, a lot of time has been put into. I feel like I just sound like Donald Trump there. A lot of.
We've done all this time without injecting any politics.
I'm not talking politics, so how I stand about sounding like Donald Trump, no comment. But a lot of research and time is obviously put into organizing a mass amount of people to work together towards one goal. So as you're going and creating core values, you start to realize, like, oh, that's a lot like something that I learned when I was in the military. It's the exact same thing we just came up with organically. How do you feel about this tagline? Oh yeah, that sums it up pretty well. It's like, okay, well there's.
So I hit the pause button for a second. So we are in the Bonvecchio household. So my wife is here. I'm really, really proud. I think my wife just drank half a beer, went for a run, came back, and now she's drinking the other half. Is that true?
It's fine.
That's amazing. I'm so fucking proud of you right now.
I witnessed that all happen and didn't even register
Nice.
at first. But that is great. That is
Oh,
only maybe possibly beaten by was it Joey, our client Joey, who
Yeah, Joey Bond.
did 2 sets of squats and then went to Buffalo Wild Wings, had dinner, drank 2 beers, and then came back and finished his squat session.
Yep. Yeah, unbelievable.
Don't ring the bell.
These people are obviously listening to the podcast.
Mm.
I love you so much.
Guys, that sounds great, actually.
So, yeah, I like Buffalo Wild Wings. And I've never even been there in person. I just had it like takeout. I just like wings.
Yeah, wings are great.
Alright, so the last core value is I'm going to explain a little bit about the meaning of it and then give you the tagline. I think that will help some people. Because this tagline gets thrown around a lot by people I don't think they know what it means. And so we were thinking, all right, we want a core value that expresses something about our style of training. You know, we've talked about the training environment, and then a few things that we want to instill, I guess, characteristically in our clients and in ourselves. And then the last one was, well, what's a core value that we can always live by when it comes to how we write programs and how we develop the training? Because if we don't have one of those, we could easily get off track with our programming strategy. And we've worked in a lot of different gyms at this point, and that's something that I think we will hopefully learn from our mistakes elsewhere and have a more unified front on the programming standpoint and things of that nature. And we wanted to say that our programming would always be simple and effective. Sure, we're going to stay up to date with the research and the best practice, but not make the programming and the training philosophy so overly complex that you couldn't sum it up to somebody in a few sentences. And so with that, we picked the core value of always being high speed, low drag. High speed, low drag is something that gets thrown around in the military ranks all the time. And what it basically means is that, you know, you don't want things that are weighing you down. You only want to add things to your philosophy and to your philosophy and to your training that's going to only make it more effective, more productive. It makes me think a lot about, we talk about like minimal effective dose and things like that. You know, sure, we could give a program like a triphasic to a 14-year-old, but is that really going to serve them the best, or do they just need something a lot more basic, something a lot more high speed, low drag, where they're not getting, you know, drowned in the details and they can just get after it?
I think it goes back to the no islands, where it's like maybe you take a little bit of a hit on what would be like the ideal program, but we always know that you're rarely operating in the ideal or optimal scenario. You know, there's always going to be some sort of outstanding situation that makes the training scenario not perfect, whether it's fatigue, whether it's a client's effort, whether it's the coaching, whether it's the atmosphere or the equipment available, whatever. The simpler that you make it, the less all those outside factors can tear it down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the simplest, most effective programs can be executed anywhere by anyone with whatever equipment, you know, very basic equipment. You just knock out all those other factors that could potentially take away from a program. The basics work. We know that. And you talk about looking at the research and staying up to date, and I feel like more often than not, you know, especially having talked to Greg Nuckols on an episode way back, is that research often confirms that the basics work. Stick with the basics, things like progressive overload, and you just don't have to get too fancy with this stuff. If strength training were really, really complex and required you to be really smart, I wouldn't be a fucking strength coach.
Absolutely.
I ain't that smart. I'm like the Black Sabbath of strength training. Like, keep it simple, keep it heavy, let's go.
Yeah. The one thing that just resonated with me is that, this thought just came and now it's going to go, is that, actually, I lost it.
North Providence
This
is
has
where
happened.
good
This
ideas
has
go to die.
happened a few times. What did you say right before the Black Sabbath thing? The Black Sabbath threw me off. And I just started thinking about Black Sabbath songs.
That research usually proves the basics to hold up and be true.
That's not what I was thinking about, but it did cue me in again.
Okay, good.
It's basically that, I don't know, I think this message has gotten lost recently in the fitness world a little bit. You should be getting a coach and getting coaching so that you make yourself self-sufficient. Isn't that part of the process?
Yeah.
And so many places at this point overly complicate things or just change things just for the sake of changing them, adding variation just for the sake of variation, that you could pull someone 2 years later and say, hey, could you write your own program? And they're like, fuck, no, I could not. And it's, are you kidding me? Because you should be able to. And if that's not happening, it's that programming was overly complex, and probably overly complex to the point where most of it didn't even need to be happening. And that there should be, most good programming, it's pretty easy to start to see trends and start to see why you're doing the things that you're doing, to the point where somebody could do what they're doing on their own. Like you said, the strength training is not, it's not super complex for just about everyone. You want to know what's more complex is, go listen to the episode we just did with Mike Toucher when we were talking about, we speak on training generalities. I always pronounce one word every show. I'm dyslexic.
Managing personalities, or training
Those things.
generalities.
Training generalities, like volume, intensity, things like that, all these different things are great, and you can debate them till the cows come home, but they're pretty much, it's not often that something comes along and just makes one of those obsolete. They're there, they stay the same. The more complex, the harder thing is the psychological part of the whole getting people in shape and things like that. Getting people to show up, getting people to enjoy the training. And that's why we're opening a gym.
Yeah. Because
we can't do our job as awesome if we don't have our own gym. Because our own gym is going to create a culture and is going to breed the kind of individuality from what a person needs emotionally standpoint that's so much more important than the training that they're receiving.
You said that so perfectly, and I cannot emphasize enough that individualization is important, but it's way more fucking important to individualize coaching and to individualize the management of personalities than it is to manage sets and reps and exercises.
Yeah.
Oh my God, does that get overblown and overrated? You're never gonna coach an exercise exactly the same for two athletes, and you're never gonna speak to two athletes exactly the same because they're different people. But will they have the same physiological adaptation to the same program? Much more likely.
Right.
So what you just said there about managing the personalities and coaching them specifically is so spot on, and I can't emphasize enough that the individualization of that stuff is so much more important than the program itself.
Yep. I think when people realize that where they're going to train and who they're going to train with plays such a larger role than they think, it's something that we realized, and I feel like something that forced us to be like, listen, let's open our own facility, because we understand that and we can breed something awesome with that. And that's how we're going to change people's lives, is through that. Technically, we know what to do. We have a lot of friends in the industry that help us stay up to date. We help other people stay up to date. We read research. It's all out there. It's part of what we do. We try to get better. That doesn't take nearly as much time as everything else, and that's like the bread and butter of it.
Building relationships, getting to know people inside and out, getting to know what makes them tick, what motivates them, what inspires them to get in the gym and train hard. All that stuff is way more exciting to me than like the latest periodization scheme or the latest, positional breathing drill that cures XYZ disease. That stuff is just like, it's important, but it takes such a backseat to the building relationships and motivating people, and I cannot wait to do that within the walls of the Strength House.
Yeah, and definitely in for certain types of people as well, I don't foresee our facility being the right one for everybody. Absolutely not. You know what I mean? Like, why do we love... Whoop. We just ran out of time on Instagram. I don't know if I should redo this. Will it reset our live feed?
I don't know. It's a good question.
I'm going to let that play out. I think it'll cancel our other live one, so I'm not
I don't think we got a lot left anyway.
We don't have a lot of time left, but I guess I was just going to make a relation to, like, this is kind of off topic. So, we talk a lot about Treehouse Brewing Company on this show, how much we love their beer, but it's been kind of unique in the last year to learn more about their story and then see them grow into this bigger facility that we recently visited, and to see like another small business kind of flourish in the ways that we hope to eventually. I wouldn't go to Treehouse regardless of how good their beer was if everyone was a douchebag and they played techno music every time I went there. You know what I mean? No matter how good their beer was, I'd be like, yeah, their beer's really good, but they're a bunch of douchebags, and I'm not, like, I don't drink their beer. Sorry. Even if it was the best beer I ever had. Like, I can say that wholeheartedly. I wouldn't.
It's going to be tempting when we open our gym to take anyone and everyone who wants to train. But in order to establish that culture that we want, the positive training environment that we want, it's going to have a bit of like a vetting system and like feeling people out. And I'm hoping I can close this podcast with a tremendous story from Treehouse. The last time that we went there, you, me, and Frank Duffy, we went to the opening of the Charlton location. And so we stood in line for a long time at this beautiful new location up on this hill in Charlton. And you get 2 drink tickets. So they were doing full pours on a Saturday. And you wait in line, then you pay for your 2 drink tickets. You get 2 of those little like cardboard tickets like you would get at like a high school basketball game for a 50-50 raffle. And we go and we get our first beer, and we drink our beers, and we circle back around in line. And I get up to the bar, and I'm like, where's my second ticket? I'm digging through my pockets. I can't find my ticket. And I go up to the bartender, and I ask her, I said, I know I don't have a second ticket. You don't have to give me a beer, but like, just know that I had to. And I lost my second one. She's like, no, I can't serve you. I said, okay, I understand. And I turned around, and the guy behind me in line is going like this and extending his hand to hand me his ticket. He says, here, you can have this. And before I can even say a word and be like, oh my God, no, I'm fine, like he disappeared, and I just have this ticket in my hand. And just like so selfless, so like we above me, like team player, and I hope to God that Strength House members down the line would give another Strength House member their drink ticket at Treehouse if it came down to that. Those are the kind of people.
Me too.
An angel sent from heaven got me my second beer at Treehouse the other week, and I learned a lot from that.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but in a weird way, like now every time we go to Treehouse, now that we're opening our own business, I think about a lot of the ways that they run their business, and I think about modeling the way that we're going to do ours based on theirs, just on some of the choices they've made and why they've made those.
Yep.
All right, so we're hitting up on the hour here. Guys, we can't thank you enough for all the support on the gym. Obviously, it's a topic that we'll run into a few more times on the podcast as we get closer to the opening of the facility. It is going to be truly something special. I know that. because it's going to be a reflection of Tony and I, and then that's what's going to make it different. And the people that are in the facility are going to make it something awesome as well. And it's really special, and to share it with all you guys is something that's really special as well. So feel free to reach out, any questions, or how you can get involved or come visit us once that time comes. We'd love to have you. But anything else we have on this evening?
Best way to stay up to date with what the developments are, head over to thestrengthhouse.com. Follow us on social media, of course, and we'll try to keep you guys up to date with everything that's going on. Next week, we have an awesome podcast coming up. Jen Rotzinger, one of the best female lifters of all time, is going to come on and chat with us. If you haven't checked out Jen or seen any of her stuff on social media, go check it out. She is an unbelievable lifter. Probably pound for pound the best lifter we've ever had on this podcast. So super excited to talk to Jen next week. Plan to do Tuesday again. The time is a little bit more, has a little bit more leeway, of course, as we started a little bit earlier this week. So keep tabs on Instagram for what time that's going to start next week.
Yep. And I just want to acknowledge our man Clint Huff out there saying he tutors math for beer. But
What a savage.
I don't know how many people that need math tutors supply beer, but if we can't add up the numbers, I'll surely hit you up, Clint, and I will supply the beer for your help with the math, because that was my weakest subject as a child. But that's all we have for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Please review us on iTunes, YouTube, wherever else you are tuning into the podcast. We appreciate the support, and we will see you next week.